All right. Hello. Welcome to the BMES webinar. My name is Dorma Flemister. I am the student representative to the Board of Directors and a member of the Student Affairs Committee for BMES. I'd like to introduce Hetal Sarvaiya, Associate Director at Abbvie, San Francisco. And I would like her to give a brief background on herself, and I'll let her take it away for right now.
Okay. Thank you, Dorma. Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank the organizers for providing me this opportunity and all of you for joining this session. So just a brief background about myself. I received my master's in biomedical engineering from Virginia Tech back in 2006. And since then, I have been with biotech pharma industry. My background and expertise is using mass spectrometry to characterize biotherapeutics and help in drug discovery. I've worked with a lot of other analytical and bioanalytical techniques, and I apply that routinely to answer biological questions, help with not only the early discovery research, but also drug development by using some of the translational strategy. You can find more insight into my work on the LinkedIn profile link as well.
So we're glad to have you here, and I'd like to thank all the people in the audience for joining this inaugural webinar. If you have questions, you are now allowed to write in your questions, but to get the ball rolling, I will start Hetal with a few questions of my own. So Hetal, how did you get your first job? Can you describe the process, what you went through, networking, and your path to getting that job?
Sure. So one thing that really helped me was I had to move to Boston, where I had my family. However, moving to a location which is hub for the biotech pharma really helped me open the door for a lot of opportunities. I mean, of course, I attended conferences and presented my work while I was at Virginia Tech, and that kind of helped me understand, where I can apply my research and, what the future looks like. And being in Boston really helped me network with the consulting firms, recruiters, reach out, at least be able to give interviews. And then I found a job in one of the biotech pharma. It's challenging to get an entry-level job without real experience, but trust me, there are so many companies these days, and if you are in my industry, biotech pharma, you need to be either in Boston area or San Francisco. Those are the two big hubs.
Okay, great. So we have some questions from the audience, just kind of going off of that. How did you get your resume? How did you get your resume to stand out from the application pool and to the recruiter? Do you know anything behind the scenes about that now that you're actually an associate director yourself?
Yeah, I mean, initially when you just pass out from university, university, there are people who help you with the resume. My professor or advisor really helped me polish my resume and make it look presentable. So for me, that was, reach out to your professors, advisors, and there are committees that help, there are career fairs that happen and committees within the university that help you polish your resume. So I think for me, that really helped. My professor really helped me make it more presentable.
Okay, great answer. So with that in mind, how strategic are you with networking? I feel like this is a word that's used frequently. We're told to tell students to network and network, but what exactly does that mean? How do you network?
Sure. I mean, again, back in 2006, networking was different than what networking means right now in 2020. So I would kind of try to give my answer where I pool all of that, right? I mean, in scientific field, networking really, you can do that by attending conferences, by presenting at relevant seminar in the biological community or conferences. So that's definitely where you can reach out, you can network, open, meet people, try to attend career fairs. And coming back to 2020, I feel LinkedIn is a great tool and resource to network, right? I mean, get your profile, update your profile. Even if you have to spend some and become premium members, I think it's worth the investment where you can really reach out. You know what industry or what field you are looking at, and what companies. If you can find out professionals or reach out to them, there's no harm, I mean, there are really good people who do respond. So that's another tool you can use on top of, conferences, presentations, etc.
Okay. So stepping back a little, before you even start networking and before you even start applying for a job, you have to be pretty successful in school. So what are some of the attributes that someone would need in order to be really successful in STEM? What are you looking at for applicants to be proficient in, or what do you think is good for a STEM student to work with, study, or intern?
Yes, definitely academics is key, right? Getting the good grades and GPA does matter, especially, when we ourselves in industry are looking for interns. We do try to see that they have overall good GPA. So yes, that's definitely number one. Second, try to involve yourself in academics, in research, whatever the field is, biomechanics or cell and tissue engineering, imaging, something like what I did, like a mix of bioanalytical and analytical chemistry type of work. Try to build skills, lab skills, try to publish, try to present. All of that helps. And look out for the right internship opportunities. That really helps you build that experience and get into the industry as well.
Okay. So kind of like bridging off of that, there are definitely technical skills you have to learn as a student, but what are some non-technical skills that you picked up or you wish you would have learned as a student that translated well to your roles?
Sure. So non-technical, I feel like, two very important things that really help you build your technical expertise as well. And even though you call them out as non-technical, I still feel they can be somewhere in between, is your presentation skills and your writing, right? I mean, professional writing. I think if the universities can arrange for workshops that can help students build those two skills, that would be really helpful for them to step into the real world after they are out of the university. So presentation skills and writing skills.
Okay. So a question from the audience is, what if you are not in Boston or San Francisco area when you're looking for a pharma job? What is the probability of being seen? Because basically Boston, San Francisco, those are the big biotech hubs of the United States. So how do you find these either smaller companies, or how do you stand out from in these big fish areas?
Right. No, that's a great question. I think try to build your resume as strong as possible, and state that you are willing to move or relocate given the opportunity, and just reach out, apply to as many relevant jobs as you can, follow up, reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn, to consulting firms, share that you are really interested in joining these type of industry and you are willing to relocate and move given the opportunity. So that's the best you can do to be seen. Build an outstanding resume, use help from your professors, advisors, grad students, and that's how you can stand out.
Okay, so with that in mind, what's the best way to reach out to these professionals in these areas?
At this point, I would say use LinkedIn, right? If you know what field you are trying to get your job in, what are the top companies in that field. Try to find out the professionals within LinkedIn. Reach out to them. Reach out to the recruiters that are recruiting in the Bay Area. There are a lot of talent hunt and companies that really look for all variety of different experience level candidates. So that's how I would do it.
Okay, and do you think that a graduate degree is necessary to find jobs in this industry? There are many undergrads who are applying, but is it necessary for them to take that next step into graduate or professional school to stand out?
Mm-hmm. Again, that's a great question. There could be a couple of answers to that question. It depends on what your long-term career plan is, right? If you want to straight away go to work right after undergrad, yes, you might be able to find opportunities. There are always, there are a lot of startup companies that are looking for a low-profile, entry-level candidate that can, be hands-on and multitask and be open to learn lot of new things, right? So yes, there definitely you can find something like that. However, my advice and based on my experience, I think it would be beneficial to finish your studies and then start into the industry. It sometimes is very difficult to go back to school after you know what life would be like when you start earning. So.
Yeah, okay. So another question from the audience. Thank you guys for your participation. What are some of the minimum technical skills a biomedical engineer should have in the resume? As you know, biomedical is a very broad discipline encompassing all sorts of different kind of aspects of engineering and medicine. But at the bare minimum, what do you think a biomedical engineer should at least be capable of?
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah. You very well described, Dorma. It's a broad field, and depending on the what your elective is and what projects and research have you conducted within your academic career, you need to have some hands-on projects, some kind of laboratory experience or research projects that can apply to the practical, to the industry trends and build into that, right? I mean, just doing your just doing the subjects and your core doesn't really help. You need to add on to at least some research projects or collaborations or work that you did during the school. That really helps.
Okay, I think that's a great response. So just overall, what do you think is a big pitfall for someone trying to enter the field?
Okay, so, I will tell my perspective from a biotech pharma industry, right? I mean, there is a lot going on in biotech pharma industry. There are so many different disciplines in there, so many different departments, and a lot of different science going on. If you're not exactly sure what you would want to pursue, sometimes it often leads to confusion or you're lost, especially when you are entry level and you are trying to build skills, right? It really helps if you have a clear picture of where you want to go. I mean, it can be positive and negative. Sometimes knowing a lot of different options also helps you select what is the best for you. So it can go both ways. So.
Okay. So some more questions from the audience. Are companies looking for all the skills mentioned in the job description, or can one learn some while on the job?
Yeah, that's another great question. And, to be honest with you, when we are looking for candidates or, there's a lot we put in the job description. Don't worry if you don't match, if your resume or your skill set doesn't match everything that is listed on the job description. The job descriptions are sometimes really broad, and don't hesitate to apply if you think you don't match 100%. So yeah, I think, there's definitely opportunities for somebody to learn and develop some of the skill sets while being expert on one of them that is required on the job.
Okay. So what would you say is the most important part of the application? And for many people, they are always told to, many of these application websites tell you, in addition to your resume, to also upload a cover letter. And does that cover letter really matter?
It does. So if, in the beginning, when you are an entry-level candidate, cover letter really helps and push your resume, because, that's telling the hiring manager what you are looking for, what are the exceptional skills you have apart from your resume, and how you can contribute, and how you could be the best person to fill in the role. So I definitely agree. I used to write a lot of cover letter and change them according to the jobs I was applying back in 2006. So I feel like, yes, cover letters are very important. Even right now, when I'm looking for intern positions within my company, the cover letter really helps. I mean, if I have shortlisted 5 resumes, then the cover letter really helps me pick the top 3, for example. So yes.
Okay. So when you're looking for jobs, you said that networking, you also use like LinkedIn. Have you ever had people just directly contact you just for like informational, like an informational interview? Because as a question from the audience is talking about how people in the industry are not likely to respond to LinkedIn messages. So what's the best way to kind of contact them or to make them respond to your messages? Is there any special way you should word them? Or is it annoying to you to get these messages from people who are looking for advice on applying?
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's annoying unless you are sending 5 messages to the same person within a week, right? I mean, there is no specific format. I think it depends on the personnel and how busy they are, and how, again, everybody's way of responding, etc., right? So there is no specific format, but just, reach out saying, hey, I am graduating from blah, blah. I have this background, and I'm really looking for opportunities or advice on being part of the industry. I've read about you, and I think you can really help me guide, this process for me. So can you please be kind enough to respond back, giving me tips or, something like that. It can be something simple, and, just reach out maybe after a few weeks if you have not heard, and then I would not bother. If, twice messaging doesn't, give you a reply, then I would move on and reach out to somebody else.
Okay. So what do you think you would have done differently, or while you were in academia? What have you learned since your time in school to what you have done now?
Well, if you ask me what I have done, what would I have done differently, I would have continued in academia and got my PhD. I do regret not having done that. I had other reasons for not continuing at that time, but it does help you to reach on the top of your career having a PhD to back up. That's my Mm-hmm.
I guess going off of that, this is well, why can you elaborate on that? Why do you think that you would have really should have pushed for the PhD?
In scientific careers, when you are in biotech pharma industry, there are different career tracks. There's a management track and there's a scientific track. Some companies or some industry, certain companies or certain executives have that in their, they have that notion in their mind that you can only go this high in your career if you have a PhD, So you might somewhere or other, might face that in some or the other form. That's the reason I feel I don't think having a PhD is going to add on to your skill set, or if you are good, you stand out no matter whether you have a PhD or not. You learn through your experience, but having that really backs up for you to go higher up in the career ladder.
Do you think it's helpful to have experience as a postdoctoral research fellow after finishing a PhD with people you've interacted with? Is it if you've seen people who are coming in with PhDs, do they also have postdoctoral research or experience? Is that necessary for industry?
It is not necessary. Again, I think most of the time, if you after PhD, people do spend at least a couple of years either in an academic settings or join a postdoc program within industry. That really helps them be specific, contribute to something, publish more papers, and go to the industry having all of that background to back up, right? So it's not necessary, to be honest with you. However, it helps. Yeah.
Okay. So with this experience that you've had in these over these past years, where do you see the field of biomedical engineering in 5 years? This is where do you think the field is going to start directing its attention towards?
There are a lot of there's a lot of potential in this industry, right? Biomedical engineering, applying engineering tools to solve medical problems or help the biomedical research is really a key need, and I see that with all the research going on, the field has a lot more to contribute. So I see a lot of potential, and I see that in the next 5 years there will be more opportunities, if not less, and a lot of contributions that the biomedical engineers can provide to the pharma, medicine, biomedical community.
So could you tell us about any sort of recent developments in your line of work?
Mass spectrometry, that's what my expertise is, and it has a huge potential, and the very recent, or I would say like, the one of the groundbreaking tool was to use imaging, mass-spec imaging live during surgery to analyze biopsies for cancer patients, right? To understand their profiles and then to provide, right away the answers to some of the key questions that might have taken a long time to answer. So really, I mean, there's cutting edge research and science happening, and in all the field, there's a lot happening and going on.
Okay, so I know that you work on many different projects and you work as a team. What experience do you have with working as teams within industry?
Industry is mostly, you work in the team, and it's a good experience, I would say. Again, depending on different personalities, you need to learn to collaborate, and you need to be adaptable to the team. Not all the time everybody agrees on the decisions or on the path forward, but you need to make sure that you realize where the need is, what needs to be done, what is the impact, and then try to make everybody agree on and be on the same page. I mean, there's always positives and negatives, but you need to do the best and be adaptive. Yeah.
Do you think that there's any difference between being in graduate school or like being in a more academic setting, an academic team versus an industry team? Is there any kind of difference?
Yeah, I mean, in academics, one thing is you have to be really cheap in terms of, there's not always a lot of money to back you up. In industry, that's not the case. So that's one difference. The second, in academics, you are, all the work you are doing is to get publications. In industry, whatever you are doing is owned by the industry. So patents, publications, of course, it's industry owned. However, the opportunity for publications is, not as much in industry as it is in academia, just because of all the right, you have different patents, and you cannot share certain research going on in industry with the public at an early stage, right? So you are kind of limited with what you can publish versus what not in industry.
Mm-hmm. Are there positions in industry that allow for publishing, like to bolster your own kind of resume in a sense? Like, are people, especially for people who might think about going back to academia afterwards, where is there opportunities to publish, or is it just that the experience is all that matters?
No, there definitely is opportunity to publish, and there's always, we also make collaborations with the academia labs. Like, there are a lot of industry academia collaborations that happens all the time that yields to publications, as well as, gives you that bridge where we've hired people we have collaborated with in academics. So there's always a bridge, and there's people I've known that have gone back to academics as well. So yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back to some more questions specifically about you. How did you decide on your specialty in BME?
Again, that's a great question. To be very honest with you, back when I got admitted to the BME program, I was really trying to find a professor that had some fund who can help me provide an assistantship to cut down on my tuition. So that was my main criteria. I was definitely looking on that. And I found, I reached out to most of the professors within the BMES community at Virginia Tech, and I found my advisor who was really doing a great research. And she was not exactly within the BMES. She was at the Bioinformatics Institute, the Virginia Bioinformatics Institute, and had partial appointment with the Department of Biology back then. And, she was using mass spectrometry to understand differences in normal versus cancerous cell lines and come up with these biomarkers that can help with early diagnosis. So that was a very cool project, and I had some background in mass spectrometry during my undergrad, and so that was really a great fit, and that's how I joined her team, and we did a lot of work, published quite a few papers, and that was then my skill set, right? And that's what I used to join find a job later on. So I think, whatever really interests you and where the opportunity is, you can start building your expertise there. And if you find something else, if you're there in the academics for a longer time, you can even switch and see what interests you more or where there is an opportunity.
Okay, so although you're talking about your own specialty, and you're an expert in Mass-Spec, but what about people who are not like direct experts in their own particular field? How does the role of interdisciplinary skills come into play?
Right. I mean, I was not an expert to begin with, right, when I graduated from Virginia Tech. So you become an expert as you keep on doing things, or as you gain experience in your research over the years. So to begin with, yes, you have quite a few skill sets, right? And then you try to find an opportunity where you can use those skill sets, but not always you might have that opportunity to do one versus the other thing, right? So over the years, you build skills and you gain expertise, but to begin with, everyone starts off with interdisciplinary skills, and I would not hesitate with that. And, again, you need a variety of different skill sets to succeed. It depends in your career ladder and, in your journey, how you adapt and what you focus on.
Okay. So do you think it's important to have, so this is a question from the audience. How important is it to have industrial experience before landing on the first job for an international student, if you know anything about that yourself?
So, I will start off with my example. I did not do any internship. I finished my master's in less than 1.5 years. So my focus was just to, finish it as fast as possible. However, I got enough research exposure within, working with my advisor, publishing a lot of papers. So, if you are doing cutting edge research while you are pursuing your undergrad or master's or PhD and have good publications to back you up, you don't necessarily need an internship to get into your first job in industry. However, if you are focusing on just academics or completing coursework and not really, doing a dissertation or thesis, then you are limited with your research exposure. And so having an internship really helps in that case to add up to your experience so that you can land, that it's easier for you to get into the industry.
Okay, that's a great response. So, as your role as associate director, you're in a higher position at Abbvie, if I'm understanding correctly, and I hear a lot about there being more focus on improving gender equality in engineering. Is this a problem you've run into? Like, have you had any sort of issues with progressing up the career ladder?
I have not. So I've been lucky enough, the three different companies that I have worked with, all of the team members as well as the senior leadership has been really appreciative and I have not experienced any differentiation. I've heard stories from friends and people that there's that happening at places. However, I have not experienced it.
Okay. So on top of that, this is more of a kind of an industry, kind of looking at the industry as a whole. There are a lot of startup companies, and there are big companies. Is there any reason, should you put more focus on applying to big companies or to startup companies, or just shoot your shot everywhere?
I mean, as a beginner, yes, I would say shoot your shot everywhere. Given a choice, there's pros and cons, right? Startup companies come with a risk of not being successful in the near term, and you might be out of your job. At the same time, if promising, startup companies can make you really rich in a short time. If you look at the bigger companies, yes, they are more stable, or there's backing up of money, etc. However, there's layoffs that happen on and off. So, you cannot decide based on stability perspective, because there is no stability anywhere, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, in an established big company, for a beginner, there might be a lot of opportunity to contribute in all different research and departments. But I still believe, at an entry level, joining the startup really makes you get all the experience you need, because startups are limited in funding, and people do really wear multiple hats to get the work done, right? So you do get the exposure, the vision and visibility, I would say, in a startup than in a big company.
Okay, so we have another question from the audience. And how important is research experience versus having publications? So, for example, just participating in research, showing years of being in a lab, but you didn't really culminate in a publication, but you have this depth of experience. Is it more important to have these publications backing your name, or is it just the experience that you guys are looking for?
I mean, real experience definitely is the most valuable, right? Because that really speaks to your skills and what you can contribute. Not having publication is not going to, harm, but yeah, if you are at a PhD level, then and you are applying to industry, then you do need some publications to back up your skills and research, right? However, if you are an undergrad or master's level student, then real-time experience is the most valuable, and not having publications is not going to harm you either way. Yeah.
So for people who are first getting their job, what's part of the negotiation process if they've accepted the job? If you have any advice on that?
Okay, so negotiation comes into the picture when you have something really solid on your term to offer than what the job is asking, right? I feel, as an entry level, I did not negotiate back as an entry level. Yes, of course, then when you start gaining experience, there's always that factor that, okay, if you don't have a salary you are making right now, and if somebody is giving you the first job with X salary, how are you going to say that's not enough, right? How are you going to negotiate on compensation and benefits? Yeah, maybe you can say that you are relocating, and if they can help you with some package or something. So so negotiation is different depending on the stage, your beginner or entry level versus you've packed some experience in your bag and then you are applying, then you have a different position to negotiate.
Do you feel like in your role that you're currently still learning how to do your job, to do your craft, your role, your expertise? Do you think you have culminated in becoming an expert, or do you still think there's a lot more to learn?
Oh, of course, there's always something to learn, right? I mean, there won't be any fun if you stop learning in your role, right? Then there's no fun, right? I mean, there's so many things happening in the industry. You have your current role and your responsibilities that you need to do, but at the same time, you need to be on top of everything that's happening outside in the industry. So, and again, there's always opportunities even within the industry and within the departments to learn, to adapt to things, to apply, for example, a new technology or a new workflow or processes to make things better, right? So yes, learning never stops, and it should not actually. Otherwise, it's kind of a dead end.
So you'd say, you mentioned before that you would have continued into a PhD. Is that kind of why you feel like you're always going to be learning, and that's one of the reasons why you might want to go for the PhD?
Again, going for a PhD now at this level of this stage of my career, there's also a lot of personal commitments to family and stuff, right? So it may be difficult for now to go back to PhD. I personally believe that I can do I can have all those learnings and I can still develop the skill sets needed for whatever role I am in, even without having a PhD. I don't think having that is something that would have benefited with all the learnings I had and I would like to have. For me, not having a PhD, the regret is only to have that tag on my name and resume so that it would never ever hurt me to grow in my career. But from learning perspective, I believe, my experience doing the master's at Virginia Tech and the research I did with my advisor was really great to begin with. And over the years, what I have learned and developed, I think is good enough for me to continue. Yeah.
So would you say that over the years you have chosen the same path you've taken right now?
That's correct. Yes, I would have. I just mentioned having a PhD as an added advantage. Yeah.
Okay. If there are any more, we still have some time for questions, but do you have any specific advice for students who are looking, I guess, or like balancing whether or not they want to go to med school or go into grad school?
So you're asking med school versus grad school?
Yes. I know you didn't go to medical school, but there are many students who are in the BME programs who might go to med school or just trying to decide whether or not they want to go to grad school.
Mm-hmm. I think that is something, I may not be able to provide an exact answer for, because it depends on the student's interest and what they would like to do in the future, right? I mean, med school is a whole new, is a very different world, right? I mean, you have to really be committed and dedicate your next 10 years to build your medical degrees, right? And to be where you want to be in the future. Grad school is different. You can be out after 5 years with a PhD and do the research you need. So it depends on which end of the spectrum the person wants to be and decide accordingly. right?
Okay. Well, that's a great answer. Even if you aren't the most technically, but I'm sure that people would love to reach out to you for any more questions. If you have questions, you can send them to Hetal. She's open. Do you have an email you want to, or information you want to point them towards to be able to contact you?
Sure, yeah. So I can send my, I think Ryan has my email. She can share with the students, and they can, email me if they have any questions. They can even, connect with me on the LinkedIn. But emailing would be better, because then I get the specific question, and I can reach out to them with the answers.
Okay. So do you have any last words of advice to the students who are looking for their time or their opportunities in industry?
Just keep doing the good work. Build your resume. Try to learn as much as possible while you are in the academics. Gain all the research experience, hands-on experience as much as possible, and be confident. Network, attend conferences, present, and just go out there and prove yourself.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank Hetal for joining us for this inaugural webinar. As she said, we will give you the contact information for be able to contact her, and we'd like you guys to keep your eyes out for BMES's next interview with industry. Next time will be Emma Moran, a research engineer at Cook Research, and that should be scheduled live at the end of March. Details will come forward, will be forthcoming, and we are glad that you guys were here. We appreciate the questions and the time that Hetal had to answer them.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Hetal. Thank you, Hetal. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.